Hello everyone watching. Today I'm going to be doing a video on both chord shapes on the guitar and scale shapes on the guitar, all corresponding to the CAGED system. CAGED meaning C, A, G, E, and D shapes. You can reduce many things down to just those shapes on guitar, even though it doesn't seem like it at first, with just a little knowledge of fretboard shapes and a little bit of music theory, and really reduce how many things you need to memorize if you just know how it works. So this was just, I was trying to type out a response to someone I met online about this stuff, and I figured it's much easier to record it so people can see it, and then I thought I'll just put it on YouTube in case it helps anybody. So just first of all, if anybody has any questions, just leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer. I am a teacher, so I'll try to help out as much as I can, just because the more good guitar players there are, the better, and the more of us who know what we're doing, the better, to avoid that guitar player stigma and everything, which some of us might be familiar with. So let's start with chord shapes. I'm going to put in the description a marker for when the scale shapes start, if you don't want to watch the chord shape part and you already know about them. I won't be going into in depth. This is more about the scale shapes. So chord shapes, when we're talking about chord shapes on the guitar, they're shapes that we're probably all familiar with, are open chords. We're not talking about minor chords, although they count too. So we're talking about our normal open C, A, G, E, and D chords. And those are also the names of the chords down here. So this is a C chord with a C shape. And that's usually, for a lot of guitarists, as far as we go with chord shapes. It's like name of the chord, the root of the chord is the same as the name of the scale of the chord shape. So what we're going to be talking about is taking the chord shapes up the neck and using them for other chords. So just as a quick example, one that we're probably all familiar with, possibly not with how it works, is that the F chord that we all learn, the normal first position bar, is an E shape. Even though we're not playing an E chord, we're using an E shape for this chord. And we can see the shape if we bring the bar back one fret. My first finger is going to go back behind the nut just to illustrate it's becoming open strings back here. And now I'm left with a normal open E chord with a fingering that we would not usually use, because we would use this instead. So this is an F chord, but an E shape that we're using. If I move this up 2 frets, this is now a G chord with an E shape. So it doesn't matter what the actual name of the chord is, the shape is what we're talking about by what what shape we're making with our fingers, and they always go back to the open chords. There are chords that look nothing like some of these chords. Like in jazz, everyone probably is familiar with these shell voicings, major 7, G major 7, G7, G minor 7. These are actually all related back to that E shape as well. That's a little beyond the scope of this video, but I might get into it in the future if it seems like this educational stuff is interesting to anybody. So the thing to practice with this, if you're not familiar with them, first is taking all of your bar chords, all of your open chords, and turning them into bar chords. So one that a lot of people are not familiar with is like the C chord. So open C, right? This is the C shape and a C chord now, because the sound of this chord is C major, and the shape that we're putting down is C, the C shape. We always have to refinger the chord to free up our first finger to use as a bar. So you have to figure out, how can I use finger 2, 3, and 4 to play the open chord in the same place that we would normally play it, and now we have our first finger free. I'm going to put it behind the nut just to show that it's open, and now when I move everything up, we have a C shape, but a C sharp major chord. Up one more fret, a C shape with a D major chord, and so on. So that's what you're going to want to do with all of your open chords, is learn how to play them as bar chords, refinger with only 2, 3, and 4 being used, and then move up a fret. There's one thing I want to mention before I go on with 2 of the chord shapes. One that some of you may be familiar with is the A shape, maybe not calling it that, but we normally play an A chord like this, right? Fingers 2, 3, and 4, or maybe fingers 1, 2, and 3. We can definitely play this as a bar chord like this, and it works. Higher up the neck, not so much. I mean, I kind of lucked out there, but it's not super super reliable. Even though I'm getting them, it's not as comfortable as if I come back down here for like B flat major, this fingering. If I just use a third finger bar, I lose the first string because now I'm muting it, but we see a lot of like rock guitar or jazz guitar using this fingering instead. So I will be using that one most likely. But this is still possible. It's just kind of the choice of which one you want to use and if you need the first string to be muted or actually hearing the note. Now the one that's more important to mention is the G shape. So let's do G chord. I'm freeing up the first finger to use as a bar, and I move everything up 1 fret. Fine, that's great. Try that though, and if you haven't played for a long time, you might find that it's not possible. It's not that comfortable, even after doing it a lot. It really does kind of stress the hand, and I mean, I'm using a Dinarette cushion to get the guitar up, so I have this in, you know, the optimal playing position for me, as most of us would consider it. So this G shape, I'll move it up. So here's our G, up 1 fret, put the bar down. Usually we don't need either the bottom notes or the top notes in this chord. So we can either just take these bottom 2 notes off and not play the bottom 2 strings, right? Now I just have 1, 1, 1, 4 as my fingering. And I'm only taking these fingers off to show you I would not usually do this. We want to keep our fingers out over the fretboard, right? So that would work for the G shape. The one I end up using more often is we just drop the first string back to the full version again. I'm going to refinger my fingers 2 and 3 down here as 3 and 4, and now I'm going to lift slightly up here to mute the first string so that I can play this, right? So I'm getting all 5 notes of the G chord and just muting out the 6th on the first string. You can also just not play it with the pick, but honestly, you know, when we're strumming, playing on the bandstand and stuff, we want to try to usually mute rather than aim for these little small things. Personal preference. So the way to practice these after you're used to just, you know, getting them to be able to be played as bar chords is by choosing a key. Do the cycle of fourths or the circle of fifths. I like the cycle of fourths personally, and start with C and play all the shapes in the key of C. You'll have to take some time to actually find these. I would encourage you not to just look up, oh, it's on the 3rd fret, 5th position, 8th position, and so on. You want to actually like learn the theory behind where are these notes. And I know that that's not the first thing that some people want to do, but really it does pay off. And we're not talking about even note reading at this point. We're just talking about intervals up the neck and finding where those are. That's something else I could do a video on at some point if anyone would like. Right now, I'm just going to leave it at that. So just as an example, because I want to get to the scale shape, C major, right? C shape, where it's caged is a circle. So C-A-G-E-D, C-A-G-E-D. If we start on the C shape, we're obviously going to spell the whole word caged. If I start on the A shape for some keys, like in B flat, then I'm going to have the A shape first, and then the G shape, and then the E shape, and you know, it goes around. We want to play all 5 shapes, and starting on the lowest position possible. So just C as an example. We have C with a C shape, C with an A shape, C with a G shape. This is the modified one I was just telling you about. C with an E shape, C with a D shape, and then back down. So they're all C chords, right? But we're using 5 different shapes to play them. And that really opens up the neck because we're not just like, uh-oh, I only know my C chord here, or I only know my C chord here. In some keys, we're not going to have these open chords to depend on, and it's a lot more useful to know them up the neck. Even if you never use them, ever, it's still just very good for your fingers and for your brain to know how this all works. So again, any questions, let me know in the comments. Looks like we're a little after 9 minutes, so I'll mark that in the video. If you're coming to this point in the video and skipped the chord part, then welcome to the scale section. We're going to be talking about scale shapes corresponding to the chord shapes that we just talked about, but with different names, and I'll tell you why in a second. So let's stay in the key of C. We're not going to be using open strings for the scale shapes because we want these to be able to be transposed and played in any key. Open string fingerings for scales are useful, but not as useful especially in jazz, which is like my background, but I would argue pretty much in general, these closed fingerings are the ones that we can move anywhere on the neck, and that's really one of the big advantages of guitar, is that we can transpose so easily. One of the disadvantages of guitar is that on a piano we can see the major scale right in front of us. It's only in the one key in C major, but all those white keys are a major scale right in front of our eyes. On guitar we have this grid. It's very useful for transposition and shapes, not really useful for scales to be able to see them. So the point of this is that we have 5 fingerings corresponding to the chord shapes that we can use up the neck and try to only stay with those 5 fingerings for a long time until we can visualize them in the same way that any person who's never played an instrument can look at the piano and see the white keys and know that that's a major scale. If somebody tells them, maybe if they don't know that's a major scale. So really I encourage you to stay with these 5 fingerings. If you're going to be doing this, it's going to pay off in the long run because you're going to be able to sight read up the neck easier. You're going to be able to learn solos much easier because all of your pentatonic shapes are contained within these scale shapes. All of your modes, of course, are contained in these scale shapes. Okay, so let's get down to it. These are going to be, first of all, not with finger extensions. And what that means, in case somebody has not heard this, is that right now I'm in second position, right? My first finger is on the 2nd fret. This would be a finger extension. I'm still in second position, 1, 2, 3, 4, because my fingers are lined up 1 finger per fret. But if these stay here and this goes back, I'm using a finger extension and I'm still in second position. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm changing positions if only my first finger is extending. The 4th finger can also extend up a fret. So our positions are usually considered a 5 fret position. We do not do this in this scale shape system because, in my opinion, and I've heard from other people, and the person who kind of popularized this, at least in the jazz world, is Jimmy Bruno. The CAGED system has been around for a very long time, before he came up with his thing. If you haven't heard him too, Google him. He's like a jazz bebop guitar legend, very amazing guitarist. He was my teacher back in college. For ear training, I played bass for college, but not the point of the video. So the scale fingerings are going to be using 1 position pivots. And the pivot means that I'm moving my fingers up 1 fret, but my thumb is staying in place, right? So we don't want to think of it as a shift, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, moving the thumb. We want to try to keep the thumb in place. In real life on the bandstand, move your thumb, whatever, but just for practice, try to consider it as I'm in this position, my thumb is staying in locked on its position on the back of the neck. So here are the fingerings. I think I'll mark down this time too, in case you want to skip all the chat. C major, in where we're starting, we could have started in open position. We're going to be starting in second position, and this lines up with the A shape. All of these notes, if I play them separately with 1 finger so you can see where they are, right? All of these notes are contained within the scale shape we're going to learn. So some people call this the A scale shape. This is not really useful in terms of theory. You'll be in a completely different key. A scale shape means nothing, and it's not useful in the same way that chord shape names are useful, because we're so used to playing those open chords. Ever since we've started guitar, usually those chords are familiar. So instead we're naming them based on the lowest note that's in position, and the scale degree that is in this case, and you'll see why in a second, is the 5th note of C. I'm playing a low G in this position. If that's where our A shape is, low G is the lowest note in position, because otherwise F sharp is here and that's not in the key, and we're going to call it shape 5. C, D, E, F, G, 5th note. That's how the naming goes all the way up the neck. There's shape 5, 6, 7, 2, and 3. And we're going to do all of those. I'll probably at some point put up a PDF, maybe not, but now I'm just going to slowly go through the fingerings with you and say them as we're doing it, and I'll tell you if there are shifts or not. So we're starting in second position, and we're starting on the 2nd finger, so we're not starting on the 2nd fret, right? Second position, 2nd finger. Here's the fingering. 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, shift up a fret, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3. The next one is shape 6. We're starting on the note A, and we're in 5th position. 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, shift back a fret, 1, 2, 4, shift up a fret, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. The next one is shape 7. Coincidentally, we're on the 7th position. This is totally a coincidence. The 7s don't line up for any reason. So 7th position has no shifts in it. Shape 7. Fingers 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. Now in shape 7, if this is the 7th note in the scale, the very next note we play is the root. It's number 1. There is no shape 1 because this is contained within shape 7. So we don't have a separate shape for shape 1. It's part of shape 7. So we've done 3 shapes so far: shape 5, shape 6, shape 7, and the next shape is shape 2 because 1 is contained within shape 7. 2 in the key of C, 2 is D, and now we're on the 10th fret, starting with finger 1. There are shifts in this. 10th position, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, shift back a fret, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, shift up a fret, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. The last one is shape 3. That's the note E in the key of C. And we're on the 12th fret. In 12th position, there are no shifts in this scale shape. Here's the fingering. Shape 3. 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. And those are the 5 scale shapes. At first, just practice them as fingerings and do make sure that you're doing them in the right spots. If you need to do it in C and just think about the positions that I told you, do it that way. We don't want to play them all in the same position right now, although that's a useful exercise later on. The way that I'll give you a under tempo example of how you should be practicing it. There should be an exact amount of time between positions and ascending and descending. So I'll do this a little slower just so that it's more maybe applicable to what you might start with. So shape 5. Two, 3, 4. Shape 6. 2, 3, 4. Shape 7. 2, 3, 4. Shape 2. Sorry, can't talk and play. 2, 3, 4. And there's your shapes. It's important to have the amount of time between them because it's more, we always want to be playing in time unless we're still struggling with fingerings and getting that basic part down. God, how long has it been? Like 23 years of playing, I still can't talk and play at the same time. I can sing and play. Maybe I should just sing my directions while I'm playing, so I apologize for the mistake. So start by doing it in the key of C. The goal will be that you want to do this in all 12 keys eventually. If you have questions about what to do next after you get this, let me know. I will try to get a PDF or something handwritten about the shapes eventually. But I actually, I kind of personally prefer teaching with copying, because it's really the way you want to be thinking of it. Reading music is great. It's super important even if you never read music in the style of music that you actually play. If you're only playing rock, music reading is extremely important. But fingerings and numbers and things like that are arguably better to internalize than to be reading. But in real life, we all have things on pieces of paper that we read with fingering, so I will try to get that up at some point. I probably won't do that tonight, possibly not tomorrow. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm sorry this ran kind of long, but there's not really any short way around this. I probably could have saved a couple of minutes just with the not babbling as much and pre-planning this, but I didn't. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and keep practicing.